Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ray Liu. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Vena Vitals. At Vena Vitals, we make a wearable device that monitors blood pressure continuously. We're a clinical stage company. We're backed by Y Combinator, Medtech Innovator, the NIH, and NSF, amongst others as well. And what you see here is actually our first product, which is used in the hospital operating room and ICU to be able to track continuous beat-to-beat blood pressure. What you see is exactly data that was measured at Henry Ford Health for a patient as they were going through surgery. So blood pressure is one of the most important vital signs, but our tools today for monitoring it are very limited. We have the traditional cuff, but that gives us only snapshots in time, even though our blood pressures are constantly changing. Now today, the only way to do continuous monitoring is through an invasive procedure called the arterial line, where you're literally stabbing a catheter directly into your artery. So that comes with its set of challenges and complications. And to tell you a little bit more about that, I want to introduce Dr. Joe Reinhardt, who's from UC Irvine, an anesthesiologist there.
The standard of monitoring in the operating room currently for blood pressure is a non-invasive blood pressure cuff around the upper arm. The cuff typically cycles every 3 to 5 minutes, which leaves a small window that we don't really see patient blood pressure in. And there is evidence that that window can make a difference.
So at Vena Vitals, we've developed a technology that allows us to continuously and non-invasively capture those real-time changes in blood pressure. And what you see here is a material science technology whereby we're able to place a soft, stretchable sensor anywhere you can feel your pulse. And what's happening is as your blood is flowing through your artery, it's pushing up against your arterial walls, which in turn applies pressure to your skin and compresses our sensor. So if your blood pressure goes up, it's going to squeeze our sensor harder, and if your blood pressure comes down, it's going to squeeze our sensor softer. And the raw data is what you see here in the waveform. You can see the strong fidelity of that waveform, and that's one of the key differences of our technology versus others. So how well does it work? Here's one of our clinical cases. We've done a lot of clinical validation. Here's an example of one where there's a lot of blood pressure fluctuation, and these are the more challenging types of cases where blood pressure goes up. You can see systolic drops down to the 70s, and then systolic goes back up to over 170. These wild swings in blood pressure are extremely difficult to be able to measure, and yet we're doing it near perfectly. As you can see, our device is the blue in the second row. The significance of this is really twofold. Number one, we can replace an invasive procedure that's still being done more than 10 million times in the US each year. So that's 10 million times just in the US alone each year. And number two, because of our wearable form factor and ease of use, we can actually bring continuous monitoring outside of the hospital to other applications such as remote patient monitoring, ambulatory, and sleep, which I'll talk about in a minute as well. And our clinical collaborators, so anesthesiologists in our clinical studies across the country, they've been presenting our data or their data that they've been collecting at a number of different conferences. This was at IARS, the International Anesthesia Research Society conference last year, and showing the conformance between our device versus the gold standard arterial line. And I want to drill into what we call the gold standard arterial line because it's actually, even though it is a gold standard, it actually is not always the most accurate because a lot of times we do better than the arterial line. To demonstrate that, we'll take a look at patient number 5 from UVM, which is the first slide or the first plot in the upper left corner there. If we zoom in on that one, so for this patient, you can see that the arterial line actually struggles in a number of areas, and it requires a flush. So if you think about an arterial line as a foreign object stabbed into your body, so your body is fighting it, and your blood is clotting as a result. And when that happens, it causes a dampening of the signal, and it results in reduced accuracy. Yet if you look at our device, we're able to capture throughout the case as a non-invasive. We don't have this challenge, and so we are actually significantly more accurate than the arterial line, as you can see here. So we're well on our way in our 510K path. We've done our validations now on 547 subjects in the operating room across 6 different study sites. And really the significance here is being able to measure accurately on a wide range of patient demographics. where we've been able to track on different age groups, different BMIs, as well as at the extremes of blood pressure at the very high and very low, where a lot of competing technologies suffer, where they can measure normotensive really well, but as soon as you get blood pressures outside the normal range, then they run into challenges. But as you can see, we're extremely accurate throughout. Just to quickly cover the business model, the market for blood pressure monitoring is enormous, as you can imagine, and if we only focus just on surgeries alone in the hospital, that in and of itself is a humongous market because there's more than 300 million surgeries performed worldwide every year. Each of those require active blood pressure monitoring, whether that's with a traditional cuff or with an arterial line. And in the US alone, that comes out to about 50 million surgeries per year. If we only capture a 20% market share, and we sell our devices at $100 per disposable sensor, then we're talking about already $1 billion business from building it from the bottom up. So, and that's just in the surgery space alone, not talking about ICU or other applications inside the hospital. But also outside the hospital, which is our second beachhead, I do want to cover quickly. So sleep is a really exciting space because it's one of the more underdiagnosed opportunities, and it's a huge population who have sleep disorders, nearly 1 billion people worldwide. But the impact is really that these patients have high risk of heart attack and stroke and cardiovascular disease and significantly reduced life expectancy. And the reason for that, the mechanism hasn't really been well understood. And what we're showing is actually quite significant because we're showing that, hey, just by wearing a simple sock, we can track the sympathetic activity, which what that means is, hey, when you stop breathing from an apneic event, that means your body has to work that much harder to recover that lost oxygen, and your blood pressure actually surges up. And we can actually measure these surges, and this is unprecedented to be able to tell you that, hey, your blood pressure surged on that event by 80 millimeters of mercury or by 120 millimeters of mercury. And when we look at an individual event, it's compelling, but when we zoom out, it's even more compelling. You can see the amount of cardiovascular stress that's being placed on the patient's body from, comparing a healthy subject without apnea versus somebody who has obstructive sleep apnea, who may be surging 50 times an hour. And you can think about not only the stress on the heart, but also on the cardiovascular system, your organs, your brain that's receiving these surges in blood pressure. So our technology, we're starting out in the hospital operating room and in sleep, but it's definitely a platform technology where there are many other applications. We can't boil the ocean all at once, but the hospital definitely extends out to other applications such as the ER and ICU dialysis centers, and in the home as well. We also just received a grant from, or not a grant, an investment from Samsung where we're looking at the consumer space. We're trying to integrate our technology into the Galaxy Watch. So we're looking at the consumer space as well. But really, we're not going to boil the ocean all at once, and we're starting where today continuous blood pressure is absolutely needed, which is the operating room. And our team is well positioned to be able to bring this company to success. We've had multiple exits. We have both large company discipline from the likes of GE Healthcare and Siemens, as well as entrepreneurial chops, having launched and exited companies to Cigna and Vizient in the past. And in terms of our key milestones coming up and also our fundraising history, we are a late seed company. We've raised about $9 million to date. About $3.5 million of that has come from non-dilutive grant funding. And we do have a small safe note open that we're closing within the next couple of weeks. And then our Series A is our focus for this meeting. We're looking to raise $15 million, looking to close that in the fall. So if you're interested in either of those, please come talk to me sometime in the next few days. And finally, I'll just leave you with one last slide, which is a comparable. Zoll acquired Edamar Medical, which is a home sleep test. Essentially, all it is a slightly less intrusive home sleep test. This was a $500 million acquisition, and it just shows how ripe this space is in sleep for being able to introduce new innovative technologies. So with that, thank you very much.